Before you go do Grand Canyon rim to rim or rim to rim to rim, you're gonna wanna listen to what I have to say very carefully. I'm Tayson, and in this video, I wanna talk to you about 4 critical things when you go to do rim to rim in the Grand Canyon. Earlier this summer, we fast packed the entire thing and did a double crossing of the Grand Canyon, and there was 4 things that really stood out to us that I think you should know. While the Grand Canyon is a pretty extreme scenario, even if you're not planning to go do rim to rim, you can still learn a lot from this video for any kind of high exertion or desert hiking, so stick around. So starting with number 1, you need to understand the trail conditions. The Grand Canyon has massive swings in temperatures. When you start off on the south rim, let's say if you're starting on the south rim, it could be very cold, you could hit to the bottom, it could be 80, 90 degrees, and by the top on the north rim, it could be back to 50, 60 degrees. Massive, massive swings. So before you go, it's critical to check the weather at the different spots that you will be for the time of day that you will be there. One of the confusing parts about going to the Grand Canyon can be the water situation. Yes, there's gonna be water in the bottom, you don't have to worry about that, but there typically is a lot of areas where you can get additional water, so you don't always have to carry that much. However, if you call ahead, sometimes they don't always know which spigots will be turned on by the time you're reaching there. So when you get into the park, make sure you check with the ranger and see if you can find out which spigots have water and are still off for the season. Because of that, I highly recommend that you have the ability and means to carry additional water between some of those longer water carries. Number 2, you need to understand the physical costs of climbing and descending elevation. A lot of times people go there. In fact, I had a conversation on trail with someone who said, I can walk 30 kilometers in the city. Do you think I could go to the bottom and back out to the top today? And I looked at the guy, I asked him a few more questions, and I could not recommend he do that because the physical toll of climbing and descending is massive. It has nothing to do with your ability to cover flat miles. So you absolutely have to understand your ability with climbing and descending. Not only that, but on the trail, there's different trail conditions. Some of the trails, like the Bright Angel trailhead, did not have very many step-ups or ledges, or let's say logs across the trail that you had to navigate, which take an additional physical toll. Whereas on the South Kaibab trail, there was a lot of steps and logs to cross, and on the north side, there were some pretty big steps at times that can take an additional physical toll. So you really need to understand your own personal relationship with how long it might take you to ascend 1,000 feet. And then take that and use that to judge your time. If you go in there and just assume that I can walk 20-minute miles in every condition, you are gonna be left with some massive scheduling changes. For example, I thought a lot about this on a recent ultra marathon that I did. It was a 45-mile ultra marathon with over 12,000 feet of climbing and descending. And as I thought about what it would take me, how long it might take me to run a flat marathon or ultra marathon for those 45 miles, I thought I could probably do that in 5 to 6 hours. However, this ultra, because of the climbing and descending, which was similar to the amount in the Grand Canyon, took me about 17. Number 3 is training, and now we're getting into the really important aspects of these tips. It's not enough to just show up 1 or 2 months ahead of time and start to train for something like this, especially if you're doing rim to rim to rim. You really need to be training a lot longer than that. In fact, when I posed these questions to the office and those that went on the trip with us, Brigham said that not even 6 months would be adequate training. And I may believe that. A lot of times if you try to cram your training into just a few months, you're really prone for injury or overtraining, and you're not gonna have the physical base that you need to go and pull something off like rim to rim to rim. So you need to be training ahead of time. But not only that, what type of training? We don't just mean going in and doing a few squats at the gym. We don't mean walking around your neighborhood. What you really, really need to do is you need to be able to find areas where you can climb and descend elevation. That's what majority of the Grand Canyon is climbing and descending. And make sure you don't skip the descending part, because actually that puts more physical strain on your body than the climbing. Another aspect of training that is important though is still to do some forms of strength training, whether that's weighted, body weight, do the strength training and make sure you're working in mobility and stretching. All of that will pay big dividends on the trail. The amount of weight that you're carrying on your body when you go to do an adventure like this is critical, especially when you're climbing up and descending. It's extra toll and strain on your muscles through the entire day. That's why our big focus was keeping things as light as possible and performance focused as possible. If you want to see some of that gear, we'll link up here to a gear list. We were testing a lot of newer products, which we were pretty excited about. You've made it to the most important tip of the video, but I do still have that bonus tip that I'll share at the end. The most important thing that you need to know before going into the Grand Canyon is how to hydrate. Not just simply that you need to hydrate, but the how is absolutely critical in these conditions. Most of you will already be aware that water consumption is really important when doing rim to rim. However, a lot of you will try to calculate your water based off of mileage. You'll say, okay, I've got 5 miles to go. I just need to carry, a liter or 2 liters, but you're thinking in terms of mileage. What you need to change is you need to think in terms of hours. How many hours will it take me to cover this 5 miles? Am I hiking up the North Rim and it's gonna significantly slow my speed down so that I need to think of not 5 miles, but 4 hours of time? If you can change that, that will drastically help you carry the right amount of water. Now, you may not know how much water you need to consume per hour, but I have done a video which will link up here, which will help you break down and understand how much water you need to carry and be drinking per hour. If you are only drinking when you're thirsty, you are gonna get behind very quickly in this canyon, and it's gonna become a big problem for you. It's important to note though that you can't just drink plain water. When you're losing this amount of water in the canyon and having to replenish it with this much, you need electrolytes, and you also need some carbohydrates or fuel to help that absorption. So when I went into the canyon, I ended up drinking 12 liters of water that day. And I was taking a lot of electrolytes. Pretty much I was adding electrolytes and mixes into every single liter that I was drinking. And this really helped me. And even with that, I still actually got behind a little bit on electrolytes and had to kind of double up for a minute to catch up. But make sure that you are bringing more than enough electrolytes and taking them in there. Now, if you need to know what some really quality electrolytes are, to our membership, we actually have some offers in there where you can get them at the additional discounts and retail rebates from Scratch and Honey Stinger. So if you need electrolytes, go check that out inside the membership. Electrolytes can be pretty finicky to understand how much you need. 2 indicators that you might need more electrolytes are if you are starting to cramp up or if water is passing through you very, very quickly. In both of those scenarios, it would be my recommendation to start consuming more electrolytes or salt. All right, so you made it to the bonus tip, and this one you're gonna love. When you get to the bottom, there's a little store down there. Make sure you bring cash. When we were there was no cards accepted. I don't know if that was a temporary thing or a permanent thing, but make sure you bring cash so that you can get a lemonade down in the bottom and reward yourself. There you have it, the 4 most important things you need to know before you go try to cross the Grand Canyon. If you wanna see our attempt of fast packing rim to rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, we did a full documentary, which we'll link right up here. Thanks for watching. If you feel like I left something out, drop that down in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you guys out on the trail.